going on, family? It's your brother Lawrence here with another episode of Watch God Work. In every episode, we have the great privilege of being able to have a conversation with exceptional brothers and sisters in every area of industry and culture. And we get to hear their God stories in the ways in which God has been a part of their life and the ways in which God has informed and informs their work. And today I am so excited about this sister, my sister, Teri Ijeoma, who's in the house. Teri, what's going on, sis?
Hey, Lawrence, how you
I'm
doing?
doing well. I'm doing well. My sister out here glowing, glowing, glowing. Well, y'all, we're always full disclosure here. You know, I am excited because I've had this just a great pleasure to know Teri over the years. I mean, I'm talking about cold Boston year, you know, over the river, and just
Yes.
seeing her journey and story, being able to have timely conversations, timely meals, timely prayers, and the ways in which I think most people who have come across her story know and hear the genuineness. And I just affirm that Teri's the real deal. She cares about this and she cares about people. And so we don't waste time. We jump right into it. Teri, who is Teri Ijeoma? Talk to us. Who are you?
Oh my goodness. So I am an investor.
Mm,
I really am an investor. Many people know me for the investing part of stocks and options. I quit my job as assistant principal and started traveling all over the world trading stocks.
mm.
And literally, I went just because I wanted a break from my bosses. They were crazy. We spent all this time like crying in the bathroom every day. I was like, I need an exit strategy. So I literally just went to travel and was affording it from trading. And while I was out there, people started asking me to teach them how to trade. So a
Mm,
lot of people know me from trade and travel, but I'm also an investor in people, as you said. So I'm super excited. Like I just gave over $500,000 away to charity this year alone in 2021. So that's it's really been cool to step into that part of investing in people's lives
mm,
and investing in churches and investing in ministries, right?
mm,
So I'm an investor.
mm.
I invest in stocks, real estate, and people.
Mm, mm. I love how you kind of set the stage because this is, you know, I think looking back, as we, most people can kind of could relate to when they look back on their lives, they see how things kind of quote unquote make sense and come together. But I want to start earlier because I think, you know, you are, you know, a very well educated sister who has done so many different things, right? So, you know, found your way at MIT, but there was time even before that. And so you talk to us about Dallas, talk about your family life, like, you know, your parents and all that, and kind of like just Dallas and coming up. And where did you start to see seeds of, okay, you know, I think God was leaving hints in terms of what I needed to do back then.
Hmm. So I'll tell you just off the bat, like I didn't think that I would be where I am
Mm,
now. Like now I am like multimillionaire, eight-figure earner. Like I did not see this at all. Like
mm,
this was absolutely God. I don't think he could have shown me this when I was younger. But I have always been an entrepreneur.
mm,
So, like, I've been an entrepreneur since elementary
mm,
school. I don't even know if you know this, but my first entrepreneurship business was getting groceries for the elderly in my neighborhood.
mm,
Like, there was a grocery store near my elementary school, and I would go to the elderly people's house, take their orders. See, I was the first Instacart before all that.
Y'all heard it here.
Like,
Y'all heard it here first
I
or second.
right. They stole my idea. That's what it was. But yeah, I'd get their orders, go get their milk and stuff and bring it back. Like I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I like ran the concession stand in high school, but I grew up with two generations of women in my house,
Mm,
my mom and my grandmother. And then my dad and my mom broke up when I was two.
mm,
So my dad actually went back to Nigeria in ninth grade,
mm,
but still have a relationship with him. Like I'm still his princess and I'm his favorite daughter of 10. We have 10, there's 10 of us.
mm,
But yeah, so I grew up mainly with my mom and grandmother.
mm. So even you forgot the Mary Kay. You know what I mean? You were out here
Oh
selling. You know what I
yes,
mean? She think I knew all of that. We done stalked the stories on top of what privileged knowledge I had. But in essence, you were just saying that early on, like even before you knew that this may be central to your life or making a living and helping people to make, it was just something that was just a common thread early on in your life. And so then take me, so from that moment but there still was also another kind of moment. I think there was a moment, I think, it was a back in the day Google moment, this $83 Google, and you're speaking with your
Oh,
grandmother about this moment.
yes.
Could you share that even before I even go a little bit deeper?
Sure. So, okay, so I first learned about stocks in high
Mm-hmm.
school. I went to this program called LEAD, and they took like minority students from all over to different business schools. So I went to one in Northwestern well, in Chicago at Northwestern, and they took us to the Chicago Stock Exchange. So that was my first entry to investing in stocks anyway. That was junior year. And it was really cool because when I got back home, Google had their IPO, and Google was IPOing for $83 a share. And right, isn't that crazy? Like it went to 1900, $2,000. It was $83 a share. And I remember going to all my teachers, like, can y'all help me? None of them could help me. Then I went to my grandmother and I was like, Granny, we got to invest in this stock. It's called Google. And she was like, well, baby, first of all, we ain't got no money. So that was the first
Mm-hmm.
no. And then the second was we didn't even know how to start. We didn't know how to open an account, nothing. So I ended up then going to MIT and interning on Wall Street. And then I found out more about stocks because I interned at Morgan Stanley. So that was like my second entry into stocks and investing. And then actually went into education, whole different route. And that was like a whole new inner like way to invest in
Mm-hmm.
people. But I would trade stocks on the side as my hobby.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the investing trajectory.
Well, you know what I'm curious about, because I think when people hear this, I think that in some sense, obviously blown away by just being in MIT and having kind of these drop moments. But I think when people kind of go to college, they're not really sure what they want to do. They kind of go on this exploration, right? A couple of years out. But you touched a lot of things, right? You did investment banking. You did now teaching. Well, now looking back, like what was that just journey from step to step? Do you feel like in those moments where were you with God as you were in this exploration? Was it, I'm not sure what I need to do, God help me? Was God even a part of your life at that stage in a real way? Like just talk to me about just kind of how God played in your exploration process.
Okay, so I grew up in the
Mm,
church, and when I say grew up in the church, it was like I was in the youth group, I was on every committee, like I was always at the church and always had a pretty good relationship with the Lord. Like I actually knew coming out of high school that I wanted to go to seminary at some point,
mm,
but decided to go to college first. And even actually after MIT, my first thought was before I go get a job, I was thinking about going to Harvard Divinity School.
mm,
But then I had decided, well, I got this offer from Monitor Group, so let me go take the offer. But I very much have known for a long time that I wanted to serve the Lord.
mm,
And when I was working, the first job, I think about like um, consulting and then leaving consulting and then going to Teach for America. Right after Teach for America, I left there to go to graduate school, but graduate school for me was seminary. I
mm,
went to Dallas Theological Seminary.
mm,
Because I said, yeah, like I could go learn about business, but I want to learn about something that I'm really passionate about. And for me, know my faith better.
mm,
I wanted to know and understand what the Bible was saying. And I felt like it was getting to a point where whenever I would hear a sermon, I could complete their sentences. And I was like, well, I'm not learning from this. I need to go learn the Bible for myself.
mm,
So very much have been wanting to serve the Lord, but I actually thought I'd be a youth pastor. Well, not
mm,
youth, but more young adult. I wanted to serve young adults that were my age.
mm,
So that's actually where I thought the Lord was leading me. And then several kind of faith things started to happen. So while I was at seminary, I got asked to come back to a ministry in Chicago. And
mm.
I remember telling them no about 3 times. And then I gave the Lord a list, which I was going to say, I don't suggest you do this, but it worked for me. So maybe do this. But I gave the Lord a list. I was like, Lord, they need to pay me at least this much. It was a list that I thought was impossible.
Mm,
So I said, at least this much. She needs to let me come back to Dallas because I was running a real estate business at the time. She needs to come back, let me come back to Dallas for the summers to run my real estate business. And this is like a full-time job. It's still gonna let me come back to Texas. Hey, that's what I put on the list. I needed to have like all these things. They needed to pay for schools because I needed to finish seminary. And I gave it to the lady. One day she was in Dallas and she was like, Teri, you keep saying no. What would make you say yes? And so I had told her the list. I said, well, you got to do these things. And she said, okay. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, like this was my impossible list. What are you talking about? But I guess like we say, God can do he can do the impossible.
Mm.
And literally he did in that sense. It was one of those things like, okay, God, fine. This has got to be you because I gave her all things and yes to all of it. And then that same thing happened when I was leaving the school. So after I worked for the ministry for about 3.5 years, I came back to Dallas to found the elementary school. And both of those jobs, just let me tell you, were really hard. Like really hard. Just we can talk about what I mean by hard.
No,
But
let's talk
when I
about it. Let's talk about it.
when I went to the elementary school, it was another faith jump to have me quit and then start traveling full time.
Mm.
And that was another one where I was like, Lord, I can't do it because I have a lease. I don't have enough money. I don't have anyone to travel with. And I gave God all the reasons why I couldn't. And then that summer, there was a flood in my 25th floor apartment. You're not supposed to have a flood on the 25th floor. But no, there was a flood in my 25th floor apartment thing. God was like, well, you said you didn't have enough money. Well, here's some insurance money to take care of it. You said you had a lease. Well, they said you can break the lease because there's a flood. Oh, you said you didn't have anybody to travel with. Where there's one more seat in this program that you need to go on. And do you know the people I was traveling with in that program are who actually told me I need to start trading travel?
Yeah, this is. I love this, and I'm glad we're here in this piece because I'm almost gonna kind of like freeze time a bit because that moment, right, trade and travel. I think I don't know if you're in Thailand, but we'll get back to that piece. And then there's another piece of this, which is I think particularly for brothers and sisters, let's say who, for example, came up in the church and it's, let's say, a similar kind of ethos that you did. I think sometimes what gets lost is when it became a decision versus a culture, when it was like really good news versus this is just something that we've always done. What was it?
Mhm.
Because I think you're talking about these faith moments where God is just like, okay, clearly God is real, clearly God is active, and clearly He's speaking to me. But even up front, what was it about God that made you say, oh, this I believe, and this is something that I want he's somebody I want in my life. Like, what was it for you? Why was it good news for you when you first kind of gave your life to the Lord?
Hmm. I think that question, it's hard for me to answer
Mm,
like time wise because like I first like hearing the stories from my mom and grandmother when I was 2 years old, I ran out of their arms, ran up to the stage and said, I want to be baptized. So
hmm,
so this for me has been just like I will serve the Lord. Like
mm,
that was like there was just and 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 I am like I'm a miracle baby. Like my mom found out at 5 months she was pregnant and then had me at 6 months. I was a preemie.
mm.
So she's like, I don't even know what it feels like to be pregnant. Um so so I think for me though, the reason why I stay is a question I can answer.
Go.
The reason why I stay believing in God and trusting in God is because of who he was to Peter when Peter denied him. So,
Mm,
like, right before, this is Jesus, and everybody doesn't have to believe in the Bible, but if you even just think through the stories. So, Jesus, before he got crucified, he told Peter, like, Peter, you're going to deny me.
mm,
And he said, Satan wants you because Satan wants you. He wants to sift you like wheat. But afterwards, no, but then he says, but I've been praying for you.
mm,
And afterwards, I want you to come back and teach your brothers. And for me, who that says Christ is one, he's omniscient. The
Mm,
fact that he could know all things and know what Peter was going to do ahead of time, like I want to serve a God that knows all things because I don't know anything.
mm,
And then I want to serve a God who knows that I'm going to do wrong, but still prays for me.
mm,
Because Christ says, like he said, you're going. The Satan wants you. You're going to deny me, but I've been praying for you. And like Christ is an intercessor. Like that's just his characteristic. And I want to serve a God that's able to intercede for me because I'm the same girl who spills chips all over the place and doesn't know what's going on in life. But I, but I have a God who can still pray for me in the
mm,
midst of that. Like that's why I serve Christ.
mm,
And then the fact that he's like, and when he's like, after you do it, I want you to come back and teach your brothers. So the fact that he still loves me despite my mistakes, like, like that's a good Christ that I'm willing to serve.
mm,
So I serve God because he knows all things, he can do all things, he's all powerful, but he still loves me despite who I am.
mm,
So that's why I still stay with God.
mm. I love this because I
Mhm.
think when people hear your story, even right now where we are in the story, now we're gonna go deep because even deeper because I think even when people hear your story and understand the when I didn't have for Google, when I was just this young child who was investing and seeing a return on something, um, now you see forward that wow, that was not wasted. God is a God of restoration. That you would remember that moment. There's also the piece of investing that God was also nurturing your gifts and affirming you in the unique gifts that you have. Because I think that people could relate. I mean, think about it. You've done so many things, right? Beyond how you were educated. Think about it. You went to seminary. You were a consultant, teacher, like your real
Mhm.
estate investor. You've done so many things, and so that's where that brings me, right? Because I think you've made some leaps in bounds and things like that. And so take me to kind of that just you being in Texas, you've been in Dallas and starting this school and leading this school and being a leader in this school at least, and having a
Mhm.
difficult time. Could you walk through what that looked like tangibly? Because I think people could relate to those moments when you're in something, you feel like this ain't it, even though you're gifted as a teacher, right? Like just
Mhm.
what would that look like for
Mhm.
you?
Well, so to know how I felt at the school and as an assistant principal, you have to know that I was coming from a job where my boss had purposefully tried to make it hard so that I would
Mm,
quit.
mm,
So for a full year, and everybody knew it. The HR team knew it. The people on my team knew it. Like literally, there was one girl on my team who was leaving, and then she had a meeting with me and said, "Hey Terry, I just want you to know that your boss told me that I should stay because she thinks she can get you out of here by the end of the week."
mm,
Like they were literally purposefully making it hard for me so that I would
mm,
leave. So to come from a situation, and I was fighting it. Like I was like, no, let me prove it to you. Let me prove myself that I deserve to be here. Like I am a good staff member. I'm a good worker. So like I came from an environment where I had just tried to prove myself
mm,
and my boss seemed to hate me. And then I left, went to this school where I'm the assistant principal. I'm thinking I'm going to be a part of creating the culture. This one's going to be different. And then it happened all over again.
mm,
And it's like I'm still in a place where I'm with a boss who seems to hate me and like nothing that I'm doing is right. To the point of like there's this one project, there's two things for me that like just are the ultimate. But there was like one time we were putting up all of these flyers, and not flyers, but they were like these big banners that we wanted like all the kids to come through the hall and be excited about. So I had done all this work, ordered the banners, made sure that my janitor had put them all up. We got everything looking really beautiful. And then she starts telling everybody, when I say everybody, like the other schools in the district, that the operations at my school are not good. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, we just did this beautiful projects. Our kids are so excited. And I have a meeting with her, and she tells me it's because one thumbtack on one of the posters is a different color than the other
mm.
thumbtacks. And I'm like, wait, really? Like, I'm in charge of the budget, the food, I'm in charge of like all these things, recruiting kids, all these things. And you're going to tell me the reason you don't like my school. And for me, it felt like personal. The reason you don't like me is because I had one thumbtack that was a different color.
Mm.
But just stuff like that to make you feel like you're not, you ain't ish, basically.
Yeah.
Right? And then there was like another project where we had to go recruit people, and I don't want to stay in the negative because all of this actually is what pushed
Mm.
me to do what I do now. But there was like another project where she was actually managing another principal, and the principal didn't want to go recruit kids.
Mhm.
So he told me, and I was over operations. I'm an assistant principal, so like I got to do what he
Mhm.
says. He told me, well, we got to find another way. So I get all creative. I'm like, okay, well, when the parents come in, we're going to have them come into this room, and then you're going to talk to them there. And then we're going to, like, just this really creative idea.
Mm.
Idea happens. Parents come. He talks to them. Everybody's excited. She pulls me into the office, and in front of like all these people, starts just yelling at me. I told you that they need to be recruiting outside, and you did this, and just crazy. And it was like, I just solved the problem, talked to your principal who's your real person, but just like that kind of stuff.
Mm.
That's the kind of stuff that had me crying in the bathroom all the time.
Mm.
It just felt like nothing was ever
Mm.
right. Um, and so, yeah, that's the type of stuff that made me need an exit
Mm.
strategy.
Yeah, I like this moment of exit strategy, but also I think the crying in the bathroom, how did you, especially right at this moment of now reimagining, okay, what is my exit? What is kind of my next plan to transition? How did you get through that without questioning your capacity? Because remember, I could imagine, think about it. You got all this education. You've essentially been known for you just felt like, all right, I am capable. I could do good work being in these positions back to back. How did you at least be in a moment where you just didn't completely question yourself and feel like I'm just a complete failure? Was kind of faith a part of where your relationship got a part of putting you in a position where to say, I have hope, let me think about what my next step is? How did you not just completely crumble and just stay in this kind of a place of complete depression and being defeated?
Who said I didn't crumble?
Mm.
What? Like, of course I questioned myself.
Mm.
It was like, well, Terry, this has happened twice. Clearly, you are the miss. You are the link. Like, you are the problem. You've had these two situations where, like, you just had horrible bosses, but maybe it's not them. Maybe it's you.
Mm.
And I do think the one thing that got me through was one, journaling really helped. Like, I
Mm.
would write my prayers, and
Mm.
so like I would write down, Lord, this is what's going on, this is what I need your help with.
Mhm.
And then I remember the Lord like specifically telling me, well, there was a couple things, but I remember the Lord specifically telling me, like, this was my Moses moment. So, you know how Moses had gone and he tried to talk to Pharaoh several times, but the Bible says that God hardened his
Yep, I
heart.
was just like,
And yeah, and then that's what made Moses move. Like, Moses, had Pharaoh been nice to Moses and let him do whatever he was asking, then they wouldn't have left Egypt. And what God kind of confirmed in my heart was, I needed you to move. And
mm.
if it wasn't hard where you were, then you would have stayed content there. You would have been okay. And that's the truth. Like, I know myself, if I'm in a place where I'm comfortable, I won't look for something else. And
Mm.
so like God told me, like, I had to intentionally make those situations hard so you would leave. And the problem is, even after the first one, when I was in the ministry, I had thought about going to Australia then and trading full time, but then I wanted the security, so I got another job. That was my plan, not God's plan. And then when I was in that next job, then it was like, oh, by the way, I hope you know, I still want you to go trade and travel. So this will not be comfortable. This will not be something you can rest in.
Woo!
Yeah.
I, I love this because I think one of the things that's so missing, one, I don't want people to miss this piece around the journaling, the prayers. I think that is a gem, right? As you're kind of navigating through that, writing out your prayers. Well, we'll get back to that, but please, people don't miss that. But two, that not only that like your work potentially right, your work is a means by which God, impacts others in the world, but God works and forms you through the work, right? So even in that, God was just like, I needed you to get this through the experience that you're having, and that parallel of Moses is just keen. So now put me in a position, because I think, again, for those people who are kind of in the more recent part, and they've seen you over these years, and they've seen Train Travel, have heard the
Mhm.
stories, have kind of curious about the courses, and done all this. And Terry gonna be real. She's extra on the humble, right? But she's really impacted thousands and thousands of people's lives, and I love how she centers the stories of the people she's influenced and helped into her work. You're now in this place where you're like, okay, now I'm in a position to travel. But even then, you didn't necessarily go with this goal to start something at all, right? But it was actually a need.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, let me do this class. So like, talk through now. You're overseas. You're with a group of people, and like, you're like, all right, I guess I can help people. Just like bring people there in terms of how the genesis of this a bit.
Mhm. So when I first started traveling, I was really running away.
Mm.
And it's kind of funny, I'm thinking about it now because like in December I ran away again to Mexico. But
It was rest. That was rest though. But yeah, but continue. Go ahead.
that was not rest. That was I ran away. But so I quit the school and then went to travel. And this actually I had written in my journal a while back, like, Lord, if I could do anything, what would it be? It would be trading full time and traveling, just because I love those two things. So when I'm overseas, I'm not thinking about starting anything. Like I literally just wanted to trade stocks and travel for myself. In my mind, there was no other bigger goal. I was just excited to be out and experiencing the world and new things. But while I was there, the group I went with a company called We Roam, and it was other employed like people who were professionals but could work from anywhere. And so they started asking me to teach them how to trade. So the first class was in Thailand, and then the second one, like we had a great time in Thailand. So they were like, "You gonna do it again?" I was like, "No, I'm trying to chill." Y'all forgot that part. Like we supposed to be chilling, and I'm just traveling for me. And and they were like, "No, really." So the next month in Thailand, no, in Vietnam, they asked me to teach another class. And after that, I had put it on Instagram. When I got back to Dallas, they asked me to teach them again because they had seen it on Instagram. So I actually did not set out to start a school or online course. It really was people just kept asking me to teach them how to trade. And I will be honest, once I was teaching them, it was fun. And the numbers of people who kept showing up was amazing. Like it impressed me. And I actually thought that I would be just teaching like one live course a month. I didn't even know that I would do it online. And yeah, and then once it started going online, it just went crazy.
This is interesting because I think for people, we're always thinking of people in mind when we talk about these stories, and your story is unique, but it's also unique because you're someone who has so many gifts. And again, I can imagine perhaps you had some sort of, not saying nest egg, right? Clearly, you had to get flooded out of your apartment and wait for insurance money to get things rolling.
Right.
But I can imagine many people in those instances when they're not sure about what's next. You kind of throw all these things against the wall. But you also have another thing where it's like, I have so many skills. I could teach. I can do ministry. I could do all these things. What allowed you? What gave you a place? Or was it just the fact that you were in a season where like, I'm not doing anything right now. I'm just going to try travel and trade. What didn't keep you from panicking, trying to do everything because you're like, I need to make a living. I need to know what goes next. Why were you in this sense? It seems like there's still a calmness even in your escape or running away and coming back to Dallas that you still were like, I'm just going to travel. Was it the fact that you were making enough money and you're like, you know what? I don't have to do this. Like, what kept you calm, in those moments where you could focus just on trading and traveling?
For me, so there was a couple things. One, I I knew that it was a God thing because God flooded me out of my house. So I knew he wasn't gonna like let me drown because like he had sent me. So
Mhm.
and then I think there was a piece of, well, the worst that could happen is that I have to go stay back home with my mom and get another job. So there was a piece of that too. Um, and then I do think, again, I think you're making assumptions that I wasn't panicking. I
Mm.
was. Like there was one time where I had lost a ton of the money that I was traveling with because I did a bad trade. And I like called my mom crying and thought that like I had lost $26,000 on a trade. And this was in Thailand. And like that was most of the money that I had planned to save to travel with. So nobody says that I wasn't panicking. I was. But at the same time, like, I do think there is a piece when you are are knowing that you are on the right path. So like it was like, okay, Lord, I'm praying. What do I do now? And it was just a keep going.
Mm.
So I can't even explain really like what gave me peace to just keep going in that moment, but never assume that there was no panic. There was I panic every day. I just keep going one foot in front of the other. Like
Yeah.
every day I feel like, well, Lord, is this the last day? Okay. It's
Yeah.
not okay, fine.
I love this in particular because, one part of it is teeing this up because I think it makes it accessible to people to understand your story, to say, I didn't have this all figured out. I wasn't sure. I was moving and not sure. But I also am gonna hold you because I'm just like, Terry. No, I know her stuff, man. Like your mom said something. Your mom said something. It wasn't just that, you lost $26,000. It was something that that your mom responded in a way that perhaps you wouldn't have even expected, that perhaps put some more of a battery in your back. What did your mom say that threw you off?
She did. So that day in Thailand, I had checked my phone and all of a sudden saw that I was like down 20,000 and then it kept going down. And so I called her panicking and crying and she was like, "But baby, like how are you going to get your money back if you quit
Mm.
now?" And I was like, "You are not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say, 'I told you so. Come back home right now. I told you this was a bad idea, and you all the way over there.'" She was supposed to say all those things, and she did not. I don't. I think the Lord touched her that day, cause I really would have quit,
Mm.
and been happy about it too. Like, you know what? I told you this wasn't gonna work out. Like sometimes you speak into your own fears
Mm.
when something goes wrong,
Mm.
instead of speaking into the life of a thing,
Mm.
and it's kind of like you try to validate your own bad thoughts.
Mhm.
And I probably would have fell into that part of myself had she not said, "But how are you going to get your money back?"
Oh man. This was
Yeah.
I feel like that's Adrian Rocky type situation moment. When she spoke at it, because in that moment, she was just like, "Win." Right, right. You know,
Right.
but now, what I love now, I think, especially in this work, I think people need to hear the impact that you're having, right? On the platform that you are on, just the level of reach and excellence in terms of the number of students that you're impacting. I just think about the connection between the fact that you're like, wow, the teacher, you're teaching your story, the genuineness. What the consistent thing you hear from your students is the fact is just like, this she's so genuine, right? That she genuinely really wants to help. These things that come through. How do you now, when you think about just your faith, now looking back to say, oh, I am teaching now, I am doing these things now, I am doing and bringing it all to bear. How do you now? How does your faith inform how you even have thought about and structure trade and travel and your course and things? How does just your faith intertwine with just the details of how you actually agitate and let people know that this there's a need out here and you need to do this? Walk us through in terms of how you think about just your business and how you reach people.
Well, I do think that this is ministry. So back when I
Mm.
went to seminary and um, I got the idea that I would be a young adult pastor, like I'm still a young adult pastor. Like I now have over like nearly 6,000 students in the course. And so every day I'm shepherding a community of 6,000 adults. And
Mm,
so like this is ministry. And I think that
mm,
sometimes we forget like you don't have to be in the church to still be ministering to people, and especially their
mm.
finances is a big part of their life. So if you're able to help
Mm,
their finances, then now you can start helping generations and building legacies and changing lives, and then the money that's built and generated can now go to different things. So now you're not the only one making a difference, but the people that are actually building wealth are now also making a difference. So it's like exponentially increasing your impact when you teach someone how to make their own money.
mm,
So this is ministry.
mm, mm. With that reach and how many people you are touching, coming from a context where you were stewarding a school and you knew the names of people, you knew these things, how, what does it look like for you? So, for example, I think now one of the biggest pushes is I think we're in this, not even just talking about gig economy, but we're in a market where there are those who have gifts and unique gifts, and they're teaching people how to do it for themselves. They're teaching people how to fish, so to speak. How do you, I think, in this world of a lot of these things out here, how do you distinguish? Is it just the fact to say, I don't even think about that? I just think, let me focus on the people I'm focused on here. I recognize that my work is touching people versus me touching people. Was that ever a tension to say, I'm creating something that's going to help people, but I may not know every individual person I help? Do you feel that tension because you're such a people person and you know so many people? How did you get to a place of peace of like, I'm going to be helping many people, but I may not talk to every single person? Or do you still try to do that?
Mm. Um, well, to be honest, I'm actually more of an introvert. So
Mm-hmm.
if I don't have to talk to a whole bunch of people, I'm actually okay. Um, but I guess I think of it more like still like building a church or shepherding a flock. Like as long as
Mm,
the overall people are going in the right way, I don't necessarily have to know each one. Like in my
mm,
mind, I think of the vision of like if there's a whole herd of sheep and like you're trying to get them all to move in one direction, like you may not be able to go by each sheep and say, okay, I need you to walk this way, I need you to walk this way. Like you just try
mm,
to get the whole boat to move in one direction.
mm,
So it is hard. Like in the very beginning, like my first class was 30 students. And so we were all on a Zoom call and I knew all their faces. And like they still help. Like some of them now, like they've gone on to do other things, but they still come back and coach our current students. So it is different from when I was very first starting because I got to actually see each person. But now I'm seeing the overall impact. So I'm seeing how many people every day are showing their $1,000 in a day wins, and how many people in a day are actually now showing that they are like paying off. Man, I have one student, she made $80,000 in her trading account and now she's giving scholarships to kids. Another one, just like she replaced her work, like however much she makes at work, she
mm,
replaced that income with trading. So now she's able to just save everything, like because she knows how to pay for all her bills with trading. So her whole work check she gets to pocket. Like there's just like all these things happening in the group. So I think that's now what I find joy in versus just knowing each person individually.
mm,
But I will say you're right. Like there is a bit of I wish I knew who each person was,
mm,
but now I'm starting to learn how to build a team so
mm,
that the team can still know who each person is.
mm. I would like to touch on that, but even as we're kind of on this latter end of it, I'm curious for you, especially I think whether when people have a perception of God, a lot of times I think sometimes with not necessarily the bad intentions. I think there's been a generation that I think has been maybe alienated or don't really associate good stewardship of provision with God, or like a lot of money, and the subject of money is just a very uh, interesting topic in our community. When did you get clear, just beyond just theologically and clear in your life, where you said like, no, God doesn't hate money. God is just very thoughtful about stewardship. Like, what was that? What was that kind of play in your mind as you were building this and seeing it grow? How did you get really clear that okay, I know what money represents. I'm not saying that God is like gonna like prosperity. That's it. Like, just what was that look like for you?
Yeah, it's crazy because a lot of people, they're taught that money is the root of all evil. So they operate their life like that. Well, if I get
Mm,
a lot of money, I got to give it away right away because it'll stem evilness. But actually, there are so many wealthy people who have a role in the Bible. And so that has been the part for me. Like there's like this, and it's so crazy because usually it's like one line, and if you read too fast, you miss it. But
mm,
like there's like this one line where it talks about Jesus and his disciples were doing something, and there was a group of women with him that were providing for them out of their resources. And it lists like three wealthy women that were actually, they were the ones that were providing for the ministry. The
mm,
reason why the ministry was able to go as far as it was because there were some wealthy women that were taking care of them.
mm,
And then there's like, yeah, isn't that crazy? And then
mhm,
there's like another place where it says, like Jesus was walking through Jericho, and there's a guy named Zacchaeus. Is it? You know, I'm bad with names, but I
mhm,
think it's Zacchaeus. And
mhm,
it says there was a wealthy man, and he climbed up a tree because he wanted to see Jesus. And
mhm,
then it says once Jesus came under the tree, he called him down and said, "Hey, Zacchaeus, I'm staying at your house." And like for me, that's been something that I've been praying a lot about lately. Like, Lord, I just want you to feel comfortable staying at my house. Like there's
mm,
a role for wealthy people. We are the place that we're the people who fund the ministry, and we're also the
mm.
people where the ministers come to rest. Like they're able to come to our house and find rest. So like there's a role for us, which is what fuels me, because I know that God's raising, like he's given me all this money. Like people come to the course and they're like, the Lord told me to come to the course. So I'm like, okay, welcome.
You're like, all right, okay, okay, cool, cool, cool.
I got you. Understand?
T-
So
t-
I know that this is a Lord thing, but I also know that like he's doing this because like he has a role for me. Like the ministry won't move forward unless we have the finances.
Mm, yo, Terry, there's so much. There was so much in that. I think people see, glimpses of this when I think if they thought about, remember the civil rights movement. There's kind of like Freedom's Daughters and a lot of the forgotten women of beyond just the activists per se. Um, that a lot of those are fueled by middle class black families, but many of the women are people who are able to pour into the movements, and I think we lose sight of that in the work, right? Of that everything that is necessary for the ministry God has within the body, right? So one may not have, one has, and one is able to do that. And so I'm hoping that people hear in this just that the unique role of resources and the great responsibility is because it's not for you. It's not just for you.
Yes.
It's for so many people. I am so curious with this piece because I'm mindful of my sister's time, but I'm so curious, especially now, where you're nearing going to this place of reaching 10,000 and touching 10,000 students, which are just not individuals; those are families, they're generations of people. How much do you think about just again now your team, the way it is structured, the packages, where is God in this process now, right? And when you cross the 5,000 mark, you offer such great opportunities. Like, where do you see trade and travel going now, and how is God anchoring how it looks, how your team looks, who's with you on the journey?
Yeah. So there's two things I want to share. Like one is I'm now stepping into this philanthropist role,
Mm,
which is really cool, but like I'm so new to it. Like I told my pastor, I'm like, look, can you help me? Because all of a sudden I got all this money and now I don't know how to like what do the other wealthy white people do? That was the real question I was asking him in a more political way. Like how do they do this?
mm,
But like a storm came through Dallas and froze all the pipes. So I was able to recently give $50,000 to just help 10 churches like rebuild their churches,
mm,
because all like a flood comes, the churches are destroyed.
mm,
So now like I can help fund the churches being rebuilt. And so that's
mm,
like super cool. Like
mm,
what? Like I never would have thought I'd be able to do something like that. And
mm.
like another organization, like, oh, I gave $450,000 to another nonprofit, and it was just like, I can't believe that I can do that and not feel like I like I'm fine.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
so that's like really cool. This ability to just serve in these really cool ways. So I think God is definitely there. Like the
Mm,
whole point of this was to give to ministry. So
mm,
now I get to give to ministry, which is super exciting. I like that's the part that I'm like, I can't believe this. I was so giddy all the way to the bank when I had to give the $450,000 check. I was like giddy. And I was thankful that God allowed me to feel joy, because that's been also the prayer, like, Lord, on this journey, let me have joy.
mm,
And like I felt so much joy going to give those checks. So like that's the fun part. And then also like we have like I'm starting an initiative now called the Bible's Money Secrets,
mm,
where over 20 teachers that teach finances have also given a message about a scripture that has helped them. So like I've now done like 4 of them, and so we'll be putting that out too. So
mm.
it's also about just now that you have an audience, how do you spread a message? So it's really cool.
I love this. I want to say this, especially before we wrap. Is I care about you. You're my sister, and I'm so excited and happy that you've been able to see this vision through that God has placed on your heart and help so many people. But I think what people can also, relate to or perhaps be curious about is with all that you are doing. You talked about an escape. You talked about November, December was an escape. I remember you're on the show. You
I was
like, I need
running
to head out of
away.
here, man. I'm going to Seattle, and I'm gonna come back. And then December, I'm going to Mexico, and then bam, I'm down in Miami. I'm down everywhere. How do you care for yourself and still allow for the equilibrium? How does God care? How have you been able? How are you seeking? Let me just say, to care for
Mhm.
yourself well with a greater responsibility, a lot of time being stretched so many places. Like, what does connection and rhythm with God and just keeping yourself healthy in a holistic sense look like? And how has God helped you and is helping you in that?
I think one thing that I've been doing is allowing myself to every month do something that's for me and
Mm.
not for others.
Mm.
So one thing that I had to realize is I didn't ask, and I don't want anyone to hear this and hear it bad, but I didn't ask to teach thousands of people. I didn't ask for that, but I was called to that.
Mm.
So, like, teaching and serving the students is my calling, and I do it joyfully, but it's not necessarily what always is going to personally bring me joy.
Mm.
So, every month, like, I've been really intentional of like doing something that I want to do and not having any parameters on it.
Mm.
So the Mexico trip was one of those like I need to remember that I'm me. So I need to
Mm.
know that I can just jump on a plane and go somewhere and I'm not stuck.
Mm.
And so that's what I did. The very next I booked a flight, like 2 days later I was in Mexico. Like
Mm.
but it was do you know like the biggest part of the excitement for me was just being in the plane. To know that I can still do what I want with my own time.
Mm.
That was like that's important to me.
Mm.
So even now when I go on my trips, it's really just a reminder that Terry, you do own your time. You don't
Mm.
have to have a boss. You don't have to have anybody else. Like you are in control of your time.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that would be one thing to do things for me. And then the other thing is I really do think the Lord has allowed me to be surrounded by good people.
Mm.
So like and that's always my prayer. Like Lord, provide me with the relationships. Like even you, like Lawrence, I hope you know, like I love that you're in my life. Like I need you in my life,
Mm.
right? Like the people who've known me a long time and really do care for me. So like that's been a blessing too. The Lord's just provided really great people as I've been going through this journey to just allow me even to have a place where I can rest.
Mm.
So yeah, that's important.
Uh, I thank God for you. I thank God for your life. I thank God that you're my friend and you're my sister. Um,
Mm-mm.
with the heart, I think with the heart towards you and just your relationship with God. When do you feel most connected to God? If you would just mapped out your day and you're talking about a day in the life, what would be the ideal day for Terry with God and to really connect with God? What would that look like?
I feel the most connected when I've read the Bible and then the Lord kind of gives me a an understanding about the word.
Mm.
And I feel almost like he told me a secret. Like when when you like read something and you're like, "Oh my God, like I never saw that before," or
Mm.
"Oh, that like that's good." It just hits you in a certain way. Like
Mm.
I feel most connected when I have those experiences where it just feels like I got a revelation about something.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm. I love it. Some people might think like, when she's on a plane, that's what she said.
Right?
You
That
know what I'm
part
saying?
too. But like Lawrence, listen, you ain't listening. No.
Exactly. I was gonna say this, but yo, Terry. Now we gonna do part two. We gonna connect. But I just want to say this. I think I speak for so many people. It's just like, um, you used to talk about you've mentioned this moment of Zacchaeus in the tree, but also you also frame Zacchaeus as a witness who may not actually be aware. You may not even be aware that people are watching, but they are watching. Some watching as champions of you from a distance. Some watching because they're just watching. Uh, um, I just want to let you know that people are watching, and people are moved, and people see that you carry God's light, and that you are shining in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And so I just thank you so much for you being faithful, being courageous in the midst of panic, being courageous in the midst of being unsure, being courageous when you think about all the families that you are helping. You are changing generations. You are having people reimagine their relationship with money. Money not as a bad thing, but not being an ultimate thing, but something that you could steward for good. And I thank you so much, sister, for how you love us through the way God has loved you and given you revelation. And so I want to say thank you for that. But I also want to make sure I give a platform for you for someone who's like, okay, I want to follow Terry. I want to support her. What do you got? What do you got coming up that people could support? How do they connect with you? What's ahead, and how do people connect with you?
So I think the biggest thing is just letting more people know about me, like spreading the word that we do have a trade and travel course.
Mm.
Especially as we think about like Women's History Month and Black and Financial Literacy Month and just all the different just platforms out there.
Mm.
Like, please spread the word that we're doing really great work here.
Mm.
And on Instagram, you can find me at Teri Ijeoma, which is my name, all one word, no periods. A lot of people be trying to pretend to be me, just Teri Ijeoma. Or everywhere at Trade and Travel. So YouTube Trade and Travel, Instagram Trade and Travel, Facebook Trade and Travel. Just look us up, Trade and Travel, and you'll find us.
Yo,
Oh,
I need to
sorry,
ask this
one other
question because
thing.
I'm. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and if you want a free webinar on how to make $1,000 in a day, it's at itradeandtravel.com. So check that out too. itradeandtravel.com.
Per- Perfect. Yo, we have some sophisticated brothers and sisters in the streets, and we have newbies in the streets. I hear your team Trade Station. Is there something? Is there? I hear there's some incentives. Should they sign up for you and get some incentive? Like I just want to kind of put that out there to make sure that people do who know Trade Station is the joint that you roll on. Is that promotion relationship still there?
So actually, we just ended it.
Oh.
But you can still sign up for TradeStation. I've been trading with TradeStation for like 6 years. I've been trading altogether 11 years, and
Mm.
so TradeStation has been with me even before like I started a school. So they've been watching this journey too, and been like super gracious. Just like they're letting my students sign up for accounts with less than $2,000 in your account. You're supposed to sign up with 2,000. They're like, yeah, just $500. And
Mm.
we'll let them access the simulator and trade with fake money. So they've just been super, super great to work
Mm.
with. So I still do say go to TradeStation, but we don't have anything special with them right now. But if you do happen to go there and see on the drop down Terry Gioma, press that. But if it's not there, it's still a great broker.
Oh,
Hmm.
awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm stealing your time. If there was a brother or sister who's still curious about God, but not really there, they've been exceptional on the works front, but they're just kind of like, I'm just not sure. What would you say to them as a next step? If they're kind of like, I'm not sure about this God thing, Terry, like, but what do you think I should do as a next step? What would you say to them?
I'd say read the stories.
Mm.
So go to go to the New Testament and read it like a book of stories, because Jesus taught a lot in parables. And a lot of the things that I like anchor my faith on are just some of those stories. And I think as you just like learn from the wisdom there, then you'll learn more about God, but more so just it'll teach you even how to just live a better life. So start with the stories, and then you'll fall in love with the God.
Mm. Teri, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. We love you. Thank God for you, sister. Take care.
Love you too. Thank you.